Okay, Niagara College, Marketing 1301, Principles of Marketing. And one of the things I always mention to the students is talking to real graduates, real experience, career paths, so important to me. And one of the things that one of our previous speakers spoke about, Fabio Marama, was never be a PCP student, parking lot, class, parking lot. So today is Hayley Parker. I would consider Hayley, and Hayley, don't let this go to your head, but I would consider Hayley to probably be one of the most committed students that have ever walked in a Niagara College class. But what made you very, very unique and special to me as a professor was not only what you did in the classroom, but you were ultimately involved in the Ontario College Marketing Competition, which unfortunately the year that you were lined up to do that, we had unfortunately had a faculty strike and it was really tough on all of us. And I remember you and I in the hallways, but that you didn't let that stop you. You went on to the Vanier experience. And then right out of college, I noticed that you went right into the working world. I've kept in touch with you through Indigo, Chapters Indigo, and what you did there. And you just worked so hard at building your career. And then now you've kind of built into even more of a kind of that publishing kind of environment. So I wanted to bring in your story into the college, and these stories are really gaining a lot of excitement, not only for the students, but just for people who might want some good news right now. And I thought that'd be really important. So Hayley, welcome. And I'm really glad that you're taking some time out of your schedule to work with us. But I wanted you to give an opportunity. Tell us your story, like tell us your college story and then what happened and kind of your journey that you've taken since that. Because I find the students love the journey and the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thank you for inviting me back. I remember sitting in your class and having these guest speakers come in, and I was sitting there and I remember coming home and being like, I want to be invited to Neil's class to speak. So like, I saw you post that video of Andy and I was like, I'm commenting on this. I'm making sure he knows that like I'm still relevant and like I want to be there. So it worked. Connections
kind of had you on the list from the beginning, but I won't say that.
I like to think that it worked. But yeah, so sitting in those classrooms and stuff, what's really unique about the experience that I feel I had and can be really tough for college students is I didn't feel like I fit in. And when I started, I had a group and something happened where that group dynamic shifted and it really became like, did I want to be there? And there was a point between first year and second year where I considered not coming back to school because socially, I just wasn't having the experience that I wanted to.
Oh.
But what that did do was it made me really focus on like the work and what I loved about being there and like being able to dive into projects and bring out exactly like what I wanted to do and like express myself a little bit better. In the long run, what that happened is I was able to work with people who respected that instead of relationships that just wanted to be my friend. And I think that's where a lot of my traction started coming in because I was able to work with Cam Tharby,
Yeah,
who is a very powerful presence. And, we didn't get along at first, but we respected each other. And then we were in every group project together and like we were bringing out the best in each other. And I think that had like a lot to do with me also pushing myself because it's like, here's this other player in the game. Like, how can I compete? Right.
Yes,
yeah, I applied to be part of the OCMC, which was a really cool experience up until, unfortunately, the strike. I was able to also go away to the Disney program when the school went down for their leadership, Disney Institute. And that was really cool. And, there wasn't a lot of people from the sales and marketing team doing that. And I know that was the first year they opened it up to them, but like there was, I think, 4 of us from like that. So that was something that I was like, oh, it'll make me different. Oh, it'll be something I can put on my resume. And that's so important, especially because some other the students in there have like graphic design capabilities and you recognize that's not your strong suit. What are you going to do to kind of like balance that?
Right.
And especially now because everything's so digital, that those things seem to be the most important sometimes. Like when you're looking at like a job description, it'll be like, oh, you need a background with Adobe. And it's like, oh, well, I don't have that. But what I do have is spirit. So I do try and infuse that in everywhere I go. So I was able to do the Vanier case competition.
Yeah, I
And
remember that. Yeah.
that
So
was
awesome.
awesome. And again, I worked with Cam, and we had another member, Jimmy. And yeah, we placed fourth in our division, which was huge. We got plaques for it. We brought them home. You should be able to check them out in the hallway somewhere. But yeah, it was a really cool experience. And it gave me that exactly what I talk about in interviews. Because when I applied to where I am now, which is Friesen Press, a publishing company, they were like, when's the time that you had to work with a client under pressure? And it's like, wow, I have like the perfect example of this moment. So just going that extra step like really made that experience, because at the end of the day, it's not the grade that was on that report card. So yeah.
It's amazing that you tell this story, because I didn't know that about kind of the first year in college. You weren't really 100% certain. And, I can probably say that most students are in that position. We were just saying this year, we're going to have students that graduate who have never stepped foot on campus.
Mhm.
And there's uncertainty of why they're even in the program. And remember the first class we walked in and said, why are you all here? And hands go up. There were a lot of people who didn't know why they were in the room. They just knew they had to do something. And then the thing I appreciate about you is you never gave up. You became and I remember you and Cam and Jenny and Anton, like you guys just really put your heads down, and you were so focused on just being focused that I think it eliminated all the noise, because there's a lot of noise in first year college. So you did you kind of did pretty good. I think I might have gave you 100%. I have to go back on my records, but it was well deserved, right? And I say every year there's 20% of the class that I know the very first class, they got 100. I probably shouldn't admit that because I still had to grade, but you just know, and it wasn't necessarily how you led the room. It's how you always supported other people to look great. And that's servant leadership. And you now take that into your career. Yeah. And I'm kind of nervous because you're you're a publisher, and I've got a book coming out like in a week. So I'm like, I'm gonna be all nervous. Hayley's gonna grab my book and probably spell check it. But so leaving the college, now you took a bit of a career path, and everybody takes a different path. But this, I know, is what students are interested in, is what happened to you? How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, well, originally I got a part-time job at Chapters because I didn't have a job. Like I left Domino's, which at the time was not a great work environment, and I knew that I needed to get out of it. So I did. I said, I'm gonna put myself first and take a step back from that. And, there was things up in the air about, at the time we were going to move to Ottawa. That was in the cards. So I was like, I don't want something that's going to be something hard to leave or make my print somewhere. So I got a job at Chapters, and it's really funny because I actually didn't read ever growing up. And yeah, it was in first year university. I went down to the bookstore, which has a selection of 3 books. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll read this Stephen King book that I've never heard of, read it in a day or two, and then I was just hooked. So the timing of it was just kind of unique, because I was like, here's this new hobby I have, and here's this job opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I there was a video interview, which was super bizarre. I posted about it on LinkedIn. I was like, wow, it's so cool to be a part of this. I'm sure this is how all interviews are going to be going in the future. Yeah. And well, I was right. And I went to a group interview, and that was such a weird experience, because again, you're competing with all these other personalities in the room. But the thing that made me stand out, and I know this because people have come back to me from that interview and told me, because there was a couple general managers from, I think there was 3 stores hiring at the time. And then there was the regional director. And everybody in the room was very salesy, but like in the sense where they for forgetting who they were. So they were like talking over top of each other and like trying to showboat and
Mm.
just like not taking an authentic, genuine approach. And so we had to do we had to do these like games that were like you touch the numbers 1 to 20, but like only one person. It was weird. There was a string on the floor. It was bizarre. And it was about leadership. So, you know, people got up, and those very salesy people who were trying to put on a show were up front, and like they were trying to alpha male and like really assert dominance. And I was in the back talking with other people who were really quiet. And I was like,
Yeah.
hey, like, what's your idea on this? And then when I gathered a couple different opinions, I stepped forward and said, hey, we've been kind of like looking back here and whatnot and blah, 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 got that sorted out. I felt confident about the situation, but I didn't feel like I got it. Like I could look in the room and say, okay, this person are probably going to get a call, but like I was a part of an experience.
You were just doing what you normally do.
Yeah, exactly. And originally, I don't think I was one who got picked because the store's hired for their thing. So one of the ladies who was there turned to one of the other general managers and was like, hire this person. If you do not hire this person, you are making a big mistake.
Really?
And like, ego aside, that is what I got told was said. So like, that's super flattering that somebody like put their neck out when like someone's like, oh, like we're gonna pass on her. Somebody stood up for me. So I made an impact, right? She wasn't the store I ended up working for, but years later, she actually now runs that chapters. So we did get to cross paths again, and it was super cool. But when I started at that store, again, it was a part-time position. And I worked in the kids department, which was kind of secluded. There was like 3 or 4 other of us. And I went up, there was a couple things I did. And this is kind of leads into the advice that I would definitely give your students is make the jobs you want and treat every job like it's your like big girl job.
Yeah.
And make sure you're seizing opportunities and investing in yourself. So one of the first things I did was hey, I have a degree in marketing. Went up to my manager, said, what's social media doing? And she's like, I do it. I don't really do it well. I need, like, if you want to do it, it's yours.
Yeah, every place, yeah.
Yeah. So boom, I'm now running social media. So I was doing their Facebook stuff. There was a book club. Like I got to be involved with like making sure the events were running. And then we ran March Break, and I got to do a campaign behind that.
Yeah.
I started building like this little portfolio, and that's one of those jobs that a lot of people are just like, oh, I'm here temporarily. Like I walk in, it's that parking room, classroom, parking lot type thing, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, I'm here, I get my check and I bounce. And I was like, no, I'm going to make this something that when I move to Ottawa or wherever, I can say, yeah, I have social media experience now.
You were always about building your curriculum vitae. It was the package of everything that you did. Because that was one of our assignments was build a resume. And remember what I said, if you hand me a Word document with Times New Roman, I'm just gonna give it back, right?
Yeah.
And then we were creating like packages, and that was always in your mind was everything I'm doing, I'm going to collect back as almost as if you were going to hand somebody a binder of who you are. I remember you always actually I think you taught me some of that stuff on that based on what you did.
I'm pretty passionate about it. So I definitely think I refined those skills like being in school. So for sure. The second thing I did is the regional director came back, and it was the first time meeting him after the interview. And I went up and I shook the man's hand and I introduced myself. I was like, hey, I'm going to add you on LinkedIn. Turned around, did it. And you know, we had a really good relationship, and in the 3 years that I was at chapters, and I can dig into this a little bit more too, I got a promotion every year, and he was one of the people who was able to vouch for me. And then I became one of the people he talked about as an example about leadership and like buying in and how to lead and connection with other people. So by making that first impression on him when he walked through that door, I was making an impression for life, right? So
true. Yeah.
100% go and shake that person's hand. Like, don't be afraid of looking for mentors and just taking opportunity. And then lastly, and it kind of circles back to that, making sure everything you do is kind of 100%. You could work at a Subway, or you could work at, I don't know where else, but people have an idea of what a job is, right? And if it's not that desk job, then it's something temporary.
Right.
And when you treat it like something temporary, you're not going to get out of it what's the most important thing, right? Like, I have references, like I have additional projects that I was allowed to work at. I have better leadership skills. I have better time management skills, because when I invested in myself, other people were willing to invest in me. They were like, wow, Hayley cares about this job.
Yeah.
So for a really good example of that, when the first promotion came up, it was for a junior leadership role. And at the time, there was 3 other people in the building who were looking for that promotion. One of them had had the job before. The second one had worked there for a couple of years and was kind of like ready for the next step.
Yeah.
The third one was probably about on the same level as me, but I don't think he was looking for leadership.
Okay.
We had a little event that had to do with the zombie apocalypse, because it's retail and sometimes you gotta make it fun. And they let me run a team, and apparently just the way I ran my team was part of the reason that I got the promotion, was because I wasn't like, oh, this is some stupid game we're playing. I was like, yeah, let's be the best at this stupid game we're playing, right? Like, let's have fun while we're here. So
well, you know that you're always on stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, as much as you shouldn't think of it as a game, you also kind of have to think about it as, what move am I going to make? Like, how am I going to progress? And like, so it benefits me as well as everyone around me. Because as you said, like, I always look to raise kind of the other people up, and I take that into my leadership strategy as well. So I then moved from junior leadership to big girl management, and I was one of the main sales floor managers. And it's really interesting because in that time I had actually left chapters. I was going through some stuff and it just wasn't a good time for me. Okay. I took a step back, took care of myself, came back, an opportunity had opened itself, and they were like, come back, be our manager. Like, and it just, I mean, I'd like to say it worked out, but I know there's a lot of like pieces involved in how I got there. So definitely the investment from that first interview really paid off, kind of.
Yeah. I've often said to the students that, remember, you're always on stage, but your brand precedes you, which means people remember what you did and what you represented.
Yeah.
And you were never afraid to go above and beyond what people wanted.
Yeah.
Wow. So what brought you to where you are today? Like, tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fast pace of being in retail. And it's one thing that the more I'm sitting at a desk job, the more I am like, oh man, there's something so chaotic and fun about that. But I wanted to sharpen my skills. And ultimately my idea in life, like when I was sitting in your class and you said, what's that purpose, was to open my own cafe. And at the time I really wanted it to be a book cafe kind of thing. And I've kind of shifted into a board game cafe because I'm pretty big on that. And so I was like, what are some other fields that I can start to get really good, like skills from? And, sitting down and being able to do time management and building personal relationships and client-based interactions, I thought was really important. What else aligned for me was I was in the book industry, and I wrote this in my LinkedIn when I got a job switch, was, I was helping people find the right book for them. And then I found a job that was helping authors find the right people for their books. And like that alone made me really excited because it was about people. And ultimately, like if I could sharpen any skill all of the time, it would be my people skill. So what drew me to shifting completely into Friesen's.
Wow. And what's a typical day like now for you? Like you're in the world, like this is pretty cool.
So it's really cool because right now it's remote. So Friesen Press, because that's their publishing company, is stationed in Victoria, but I'm able to work in Ontario from home.
Great.
from my laptop. If I wanted to move anywhere around the world,
This is our world now.
Yeah, it's really cool. So you know what? Start the day by rolling out of bed 10 minutes before I clock in. You don't have to brush your hair until you have a meeting. So that's really great. I do though, I do. And then you log on, you do your emails. I work with, right now I have about 40 authors, but I'm supposed to be geared up to about 60. That's what we all have.
Wow.
Yeah. And we have deliverables, and we have things like websites we create. We talk to authors about what to do next with their books. So
Brilliant.
yeah, and a lot of that has to do with branding, and there's so much that I do get to talk about in that way too. That's super helpful. So yeah, it's all about that author engagement and stuff they need to succeed.
Well, let's go. I think a good way of ending this, because I always say, what advice would you give students? But it's been peppered through this whole thing. Let's go back to students right now in my class, about 80 students,
Wow.
completely virtual, all around the globe, brilliant students. And they're probably watching this going, I'm first year, Hayley's story resonates with me because I'm not sure what I want to do. I'm not sure what this is ever going to lead to. See, we were in person, we could coach and mentor and come together as teams and go get some coffee and have fun. We don't have that today. So if you could go back to thinking, being in that first year class and we're remote, what would you say to some of these students that are trying to find their way?
Definitely remember that you're investing in yourself, and that you're there to gain something that's more than just connection. But then the second piece of that is look for ways to connect and do it authentically, because the minute you stop being yourself is the minute that like you lose yourself, you can't find your purpose, you feel like you're off track, you feel alone and stuff like that. So as long as you're being your truest version of yourself, you're going to find you're having a lot easier of a time either making those connections or pushing forward.
Yeah. Hayley, like on behalf of the college, and just so proud of you. I get emotional just ignore this kid, but I'm very proud of what you've done. And I had you on the list from day one. I'm like, I gotta get a hold of Hayley and find out. I didn't know where you'd went. So I was like, I was in Indigo, like looking around going, I know Hayley's, I was going to come and see us. I know Hayley's around here somewhere. But then there's that LinkedIn thing. And that was something we did in the class, is that's your professional profile. That's what's really, really important. And that's, I would recommend anyone on this call to reach out. Hayley's name is right there on the screen. Reach out, because LinkedIn is something we're really pushing right now for people to build their brands. And you've got a great brand. So I'm really proud of you. And it's like a Tuesday night. So I want to thank you for kind of taking time out of your schedule to work with us. And you're pretty awesome. Any closing remarks?
Yeah, it was a blast. Ask me to talk anytime. I'm a big talker, so I'm in my element.
I can't wait till we come back in person.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hayley.
Cool. See you guys.